Okay, Google, set lights to 100%.
Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Twameva Mata Chapita, Twameva Bandhusta Sakha, Twameva Vedya Dravinam, Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma viddhishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om. Someone's got their microphone on and they're talking in the background. So unless you have a question and are talking, please mute your microphone. So we are proceeding through Viveka Chudamani, and we have finished the section on the qualifications of a fit student. And they are very, very important. So let's review them quickly. First of all, Shankara says that success in spiritual endeavors is entirely due to the degree of the qualifications of the fit student, being adhikari, a fit student. Other factors such as time and place, while important, are fundamentally secondary. And then he enumerates them. First one is Viveka, that firm conviction in the intellect that Brahman alone is real and that the phenomenal world is unreal, is termed discrimination between the real and the unreal. As a practice, it means for now we're going to discriminate between the self and the not self, the subject and all the objects. Second one is vairagya, dispassion. That desire doesn't mean we achieve it overnight. To give up all attachment to enjoyments gained through the senses, and to give up all of our identifications with any form of self, from the body up to and including the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning I'm a powerful person. So the idea here is any personal sense of self is an illusion. If I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. I need to let that go. If I am operating in the world with the idea, I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, people, places, things, and conditions are going to make me happy, I'm deluded. I need to let that go. Third is the group of 6. Shama adi guna, shama adi guna, qualities of shama, etc. The first is shama. These are all about keeping the mind intensely introverted and tuned up. So as I'm functioning in the world, I don't let my mind's energy gush out towards a particular object of desire. Dhamma, not letting images come from the past and force my mind out to pursue that particular idea. That's what's going to make me happy. Third one is uparati, sense withdrawal. We can think of it in its exoteric meaning when I'm in meditation, I'm not at all disturbed by phenomena outside, like the tortoise who withdraws its limbs. I move my attention interior. Shankara says the best uparati is when I'm functioning in the world, the mind is not agitated by the various sense perceptions. Titiksha, forbearance, the ability to bear the vicissitudes of life, the various hurts and slights, without the need for redress or revenge. Shraddha, faith. I need to have faith in the tradition, but also that very subtle capacity to go where the teacher's mind goes. Can you follow me there? He says it is by this means that ultimate reality is made known. And at last, samadhana, that peaceful state of mind when it rests in steady contemplation of the goal. And it's not to be obtained through any amount of oscillation of the mind. Do you mean this? Doesn't mean that? Doesn't mean this? Doesn't mean that? What about this? Should I try that? Should I go here? Should I go there? When the mind ping-pongs back and forth, drop it. Let it go. And then that's the gang of 6. The fourth qualification is mumukshutva, the burning desire for liberation. Then Shankara changes tack here, quoting other scriptures, and he says, others say that bhakti alone is supreme, meaning devotion. Does this mean I have to stand on street corners chanting Hare Krishna? Does this mean I have to engage myself in the emotionalism that many people find in worship? If you have a heart that enjoys it, it's a wonderful thing. But that's not necessary. And he says, devotion is also being devoted to an ideal, a constant attempt to live up to my true nature. Being devoted to this practice is also considered devotion. Any questions about the qualifications of a fit student? Remember, yes. Who is it who's asking the question?
Justin.
Hi, Justin.
What if I'm not all the way there on the shama? Is the one, seeking after things, the way the mind pops out. Was that the shama? Is that how you pronounce it? My apologies.
Shama, yes. Well,
okay.
You see where you're having a challenge and you focus on that.
But I mean, can I not learn? Can I not go forward with anything else if I'm not? If all
No,
these
no,
aren't
doesn't say
are
that.
these aren't tuned? Okay,
Says that,
that's what I'm asking. Like a fit student, I was thinking I had to have all these perfectly before I go forward or something.
No, actually, all of yoga is to get the qualifications of a fit student.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, 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 it's a very good question. It isn't that you become a fit student and then you have another practice.
Okay,
All
that's
of
what I
our
was
practice
thinking.
is
Is
becoming a fit student. When you're finally fit, knowledge drops in your hand like a ripe fruit.
Okay, well, thank you.
Good question, good question. Any other questions on the qualifications of a fit student? Then we had two verses in the courtesy of approach, 31 and 32, and I think now we're on 33. Is that correct, Puneet?
32.
We're on 32. All right. Okay. Sakatuas.
I have a question. Do you want me to present, Jim? And
Sure. And if the students want it, do you find it of value to have the shlokas up online?
Yes, that's great.
Okay, please do that. 32, please.
Swatmattatvanusandhanam bhaktiritya pare jaguhu utka sadhana sampanna tattvajigyasu ratmanaha.
And a little louder if you could, Puneet.
Upaside druram pragyam yasmad bandha vimokshanam. Others say that bhakti means a constant inquiry into the real nature of one's own self, one who has the above mentioned qualifications and is anxious to know the self must therefore devotedly serve a teacher well established in knowledge for redeeming themselves from bondage.
So if you are on your way and you've got some success in these qualifications of a fit student, here Shankara says, the next thing you need to do is find somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about. Now, it's very interesting. In the West, so many people are resistant to the idea of a guru. Guru means heavy. He's talking about serious stuff. Another etymology from one of the Upanishads is that the guru is one who reveals that which is hidden, from the root gu. But we wouldn't engage in any worldly study without perhaps some expert advice. For example, is it possible to learn nuclear physics all by yourself? Well, I suppose theoretically. But the easier way is to go study nuclear physics or information technology or gardening. So what is the value of the guru? The value of the guru is that he or she themselves has traveled the path. Now, if they are not themselves firmly rooted in self-knowledge, they're going to pass on their ignorance. So this is why it's of value to have a teacher who himself or herself is deeply rooted in Atma Vidya, the knowledge of the self. All right, Jim, how am I going to know that? How do I know that they're not just another person blowing smoke? You don't. So you need to have a very good BS detector. Swamiji used to say, the longer the beard, the greater your mistrust should be. And he had a very long beard. So don't be cynical. Be a spiritual scientist. As you work with a teacher, see whether or not what they say makes sense. One of the marks of a real teacher of truth, a Satguru, is they are able to put you into an experience of your own self. Then in time, you may develop some trust. And that's a good thing. I did not trust Swamiji right away. Took some time. Next one.
Shrotriyo vrijjino kama hatoyo brahma vityatam brahmanyu parata shanto nirandhana ivanalaha ahetu kadaya sindhu bandhuratmanatam satam. They who are well versed in the scriptures, sinless, unafflicted by desires, a full knower of the Supreme, who have retired into the Supreme, who is as calm as fire that has burnt up its fuel, who is a boundless ocean of mercy that needs no cause for its expression, and who is an intimate friend of those who have surrendered unto them.
So, we've gone through the qualifications of a fit student. Now we have the qualifications of a fit teacher. Now, remember, I've spoken with you about one of the stylistic devices that Shankar will use is he'll put the most important thing first, and then he'll make a list. So the first quality that he enumerates is Shrotriya, which means well-versed in the scriptures. That doesn't mean that they have, they're a walking library, etc. It means the teacher needs to be able to wield a valid means of knowledge, a pramana, we call it. There are many valid means of knowledge in the world. These great sacred traditions. There have also been people who try to invent their own yoga. My experience over 45 years plus in this work, even if they themselves may have a deep experience, they don't end up with any disciples who have the taste, who themselves are knowers of the Supreme. One of the things that was so great about Swamiji was how Shrotriyam he was. He was a master at wielding the means of knowledge. And he had dozens and dozens of enlightened disciples. That's a Satguru. So the next one, if I recall the verse correctly, who's a full knower, who's well-versed in the scriptures, who's a full knower of the Supreme, is that what's next, Puneet?
No, the next one was sinless.
Sinless. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, of course, the self is sinless, and the man or woman of wisdom is always identified with the self. But it also means that on the worldly plane, a teacher who still has a lot of vulgarities will probably confuse their students. So you hear all sorts of nonsense about teachers. It's usually three things: money, sex, and power. And the students get involved with the teacher in those three areas, and they get their hearts broken. So the teacher needs to have worked out some of these vulgarities in his or her own sadhana, so that doesn't get in the way of the teaching. I can remember Swamiji saying one time, if you cannot see who I am, just see me as a mouthpiece for the scriptures. Do not get involved with my personality. If you want the teacher's approval, or you want attention, or you want strokes, or you want worldly things from the teacher, attention, affection, etc., go there for business. Teacher has one thing they can give you. That's knowledge. Knowledge of yourself. So your teacher needs to have some degree of purity. Then the next one is a full knower of the Supreme. Is that correct?
There's one more before that.
Okay, what's that one?
Unafflicted by desires.
Oh, yes. So the one of the marks of a man or woman of wisdom is desire no longer afflicts them. Now, does this mean the teacher doesn't have preferences? It used to drive me nuts, because I'd see Swamiji and I would say, he loves spicy food, he has desires. Well, he did and he didn't. He had preferences. No attachment. If something came along, he would enjoy. If it did not come along, he was perfectly fine. Krishna says it's like a leaf of water, a drop of water added to the ocean. Doesn't raise. So watch the Guru. See whether or not they're afflicted by desire. Next idea.
The full knower of the Supreme.
So, the teacher needs to constantly live from that experience effortlessly. It's not that they had an experience 20 years ago and they remember that experience. No. They need to be a full knower of the Supreme. Sthita prajna, steady wisdom. What does that mean? Just like for you and me, you wake up in the morning and you do not doubt that you have a human body. You do not run to the mirror to make sure you're not a goat or a cow or a horse or a pig. There's no effort in that. There's no practice of it. It's the obvious, effortless knowledge. So also, for a full knower of the Supreme, they never forget that they are Brahman. It's their effortless, constant experience. The next one is who has retired into the Supreme. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the next one.
Meaning, the mind of the Guru dwells in the self, so that if you have the capacity to tune to the Guru, you see there's nothing but this vast emptiness inside. There's no person running an agenda anymore. Later on, in my work with Swamiji, there was nothing left to say. It was just go there, empty out, tune to his mind, and he was so empty, so vast, so empty. One of the additional benefits, if the Guru has retired into the Supreme, then when we are around the teacher, we get what Swamiji used to call borrowed glory. We can feel that thunder of silence. It begins to show us the mind at meditation, the awakened state of the mind. Next idea.
Who is as calm as the fire that has burnt up its fuel.
I love this one. So, what was the fire that has burned up its fuel before the fuel was burned up? Conflagration. So St. Augustine says, every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. It's just a beautiful, beautiful image. So the Guru is in every way like you and me. But as the result of knowledge, is as calm as a fire that has burnt up its fuel. Nothing left to do, nowhere to go, no agenda. Nothing to avoid, nothing to grasp at. It's gone. Next idea.
Who is a boundless ocean of mercy that needs no cause for its expression.
Is this where he uses Daya Sindhu?
Yes.
Yes, I love that expression. Sindhu is another word for ocean. Daya is mercy or compassion. Who's a boundless ocean of compassion which needs no cause. You don't have anything the teacher wants. You can't manipulate the Guru. The Guru's only joy is your awakening. And it is their nature, with infinite patience, with infinite repetition, to help the student. Guru is Daya Sindhu, an ocean of compassion. Next idea.
This is the last one. And who is an intimate friend of those who have surrendered unto them?
Yes. So, if your guru is someone who's been dead for 100 years, that's a murti. That's an idol you're worshiping. Likewise, if your guru is somewhere on the other side of the world and maybe twice in your life you've gone and they're a little orange dot 2 blocks away, could be. But the tradition is the guru's your friend. Guru's someone you can be completely honest with because they totally understand your mind. You never have to have shame or embarrassment in front of the guru. The guru knows the human condition because he or she knows his own mind. Don't ever be afraid or reluctant to spend time with the teacher. Teacher's your friend. Now, if you notice, the photograph of Swamiji is behind me. I cannot break open this shloka and look him in the face. So let's go on to the next shloka.
Kamaradhya gurum bhaktya prahavra prashasevanaihi prasannam tamanu prapya prachegyatavyamaatmanah. Worshipping that guru with deep devotion, when he is pleased with your surrender, humility, and service, approach him and ask him to explain what you must know.
So in the traditional ashram in India, you would go, you'd hang out there, you would do what they call seva, do service. You'd surrender to the program, show up, and when the guru thinks that you're ready, then he'll bring you close. And then ask him what you need to know. In our modern era, it's a little different. And now we don't have yogis, we have zoomies. So it's difficult to be a friend and have a personal relationship with a teacher in this day and age. But COVID will not last forever. See, I can remember in 1994, I went to hang out at the ashram of Guru Mai, the hugging guru in Kerala. And there were lines that would be people standing in line for days, literally. And some of them, people who came, thought of her as a fortune teller. Oh, Amaji, should my daughter marry this boy? Oh, Amaji, should I go into business with so-and-so? Oh, Amaji, what should I do about this problem? And she was loving and patient, and she would answer their questions as best she could. But it was such a waste, because her expertise is knowledge of the self. Ask her what you need to know. So part of the intelligent student's understanding is to know what are the right questions to ask. Now, don't censor yourself. Swamiji used to say, I do not want any stupid questions. And he would say, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So don't judge your questions. But in time, we learn what are the important questions. Going on, next verse.
Swamin maste nata lokam. Actually, this is a different meter, so I'm going to read it. Swaminam aste nata lokabandho karunya sindho patitam bhavadabhav mamuddharatmi yakataksha drishyaya ritvajati karunya sudhabhivashtaya.
Now, from the standpoint of the poetry, when the Shishya, the student, gets emotional, the meter changes here. So that's what's happened. So let's hear what the Shishya has asked.
O Master, O friend of those who reverentially surrender to thee, thou ocean of mercy, I salute thee. Save me, fallen as I am into the sea of change, with a direct glance from thee eyes which rain nectarine grace supreme.
So Swamiji's use the these and the thous, which are not there in the Sanskrit. It is beautiful Sanskrit poetry, and Shankara is being quite eloquent here. But what he's doing is trying to paint the emotional quality of most of us. So it is possible to come to the spiritual life through inspiration or even curiosity. However, it's quite rare. Most of us come to the spiritual life as a response to our suffering. We come to see that life, the way I'm living it, is suffering. I want out. Now, this nectarine glance from the Guru. There's a story about Swamiji that I really only heard a year or two ago. So when he was a teenager, he grew up in the state of Kerala, which is in the southwest of India. And I'm not sure where he was going, but he was passing through Tamil Nadu. And he decided to go visit the great mid-20th century saint Ramana Maharshi. So this would have been, in the early part of the century. So he gets to Ramana's ashram, and of course the place is packed. And Bhagawan is lying on his divan with his eyes closed. He used to just lie on his side, deep in his samadhi. There was no place in the back for Balan, because that's what his name was then, to sit. So he had to go all the way up front and sit down in front of Bhagawan Ramana Maharshi. And once he was seated, Ramana Maharshi opened his eyes and looked into the eyes of Bala. Technical term for this is called Drishtipata, where there's a transmission of Shakti when people meet eye to eye. Bhagawan said nothing. Just stayed there, locked in that circuit. And he closed his eyes again. When Balan left, he'd had a deep experience. But he had a scientific mind, and he convinced himself that Ramana Maharshi had hypnotized him. But something deep in his soul never forgot it. So there will be times, perhaps, where we have those intimate connections with a woman or a man. There's that sharing of that divine space. So Shankara is making reference to this as what can happen. Not necessary, doesn't always happen. Next verse.
Durvara sansara davagitatvam dudhuyamanam duradrishtavatai bhitam prapannam paripahi mrityo sharanam ya anyadaham na jane. I am being roasted in the blazing infernal fire of change. I am being tossed by the cruel storms of misfortune. I am terrified within and without. O Lord, save me from death. I seek refuge in thee, for I do not know of any other harbor wherein to seek shelter.
Yes. So, again, Shankara waxes poetical. Is this one of the new meters you've learned? The new rasas in your Sanskrit class, Puneet? Because you chanted really well.
I mean, no, I mean, it was part of the previous thing. I think Ganesh used to do it. I think may have done it.
All right. Anyway, so here the Shisha acknowledges that he's being roasted. He's burning. Burning, probably angry a lot of the time. We should define what anger is for a yogi. Anger is thwarted desire or unmet expectation. For most of us, our desires are being thwarted a whole lot of the time. So I'm suffering, I'm roasted by what? The infernal fires of change. Many of us attempt to control other people, the environment, even our own minds, to no avail. Everything's changing. And I'm full of fear because of it. So here when we think of death, that's the ultimate fear. The ego says, may I always be, may I never cease to be. And we're terrified because if we're identified with the body, that's always a precarious thing. And here he says, roasted within and without, so it's not only the external circumstances of life which are causing me such grief, but even if everything's fine on the outside, it's my stupid mind dwelling on the past, projecting into the future. Always remember, if you have 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, you're urinating on the present. So this is the state that our poor Shishya is in. And so what does he do? He surrenders. I'm going to set my own best ideas aside. I don't know what else to do but to surrender. You don't trust the Guru? Surrender to God. You can trust God. Next verse.
Shanta Mahanto Nivasanti Santo Vasanta Valloka Hitam Charantah Tirna Swayam Bhima Bhavarna Vamjanan Etun Anyana Pikarayantaha. There are peaceful and magnanimous saints who live like the spring season for the good of humanity. They have crossed the dreadful ocean of finitude through their own efforts and with no ulterior motives. They also help others to cross it.
So here Shankara says there are Mahatmas, there are Satgurus, there are men and women who themselves have crossed the ocean of change. Not through magic, but through their own self-efforts. And some of them, it is their karma to help the rest of us to cross over it too. One of the last things that Baba Ramdas said, which I just love, when asked, what's the purpose of our lives? He said, to walk one another home. That's what we do. With no ulterior motive, just because that's our nature. That's our nature. Next one.
Ayam Swabhava Swatata Eva Yat Parashramapanuda Pravanam Mahatmanam Sangusha Sukhangu
Little louder, I can't hear you.
Sudhanshuresha Swayam Arka Karsha Prabhabi Vatamavati Shittim Kila. Indeed, it is the nature of the magnanimous to help remove the troubles of others, even as the moon of its own accord cools the earth scorched by the flaming rays of the sun.
So this is poetry, but it expresses a very important principle. If you're chopping some vegetables and you accidentally cut your thumb, you don't go, oh, bad thumb. Oh, I just hate your thumb. Oh. No, you go, oh. All of you, because you pervade your body, comes to the aid of your thumb. Because you are all through your body as an eagle. So also, the woman or the man of wisdom experiences our suffering as if it were their own. So just as you seek freedom from your own suffering, it is the nature of the Guru to help us be free from ours. It's just how it works. Next one.
Brahmananda rasa anubhuti kalitaihi bhutai sushitair yutaihi yushmad vakalla shonjitaihi shruti sukhair vakyamritaihi dechaya satantam bhavata pada ava avada hanajwala Phirenam Prabho Dhanyaste Bhavadikshana Shanagate Patrikrita Svikritaha. O Lord, thy nectarine speech, honeyed by the elixir bliss of Brahman, pure, cooling, issuing in streams from thy lips, as from a water jug, and pleasing to the ear, do thou shower upon me, who am tormented by earthly afflictions as by the tongues of a forest fire. Blessed are those who have received even a passing glance from thy eyes, accepting them under thy protection.
So we have this wonderful term, Brahmananda Rasa. Rasa means juice or nectar or taste. So the juice of the bliss of Brahman. So as the teacher in satsang breaks open scripture or answers our doubts, because he or she is reveling in the self, Atmanamana, has Brahmananda Rasa, the taste, the juice of the bliss of Brahman. When we're around them, we feel it. We feel it. It's very attractive. That's how the Lord leads us in. On Thursday, we're going to start Tripura Rahasya. One of the first topics under discussion is what is the root cause of liberation? And the Thattriya, the teacher, says, Sadhu Sangha. It's association with the wise. Satsang. Being able to spend time with a man or woman of wisdom is the root cause of liberation. Next idea.
Katham tareyam bhavasindhu metam kava gatirme katamosipayah Jane na kinchit kripaya vamam prabho sansara dukkha shatimanushva. How to cross this ocean of relative existence? What is to be my ultimate destination? Which of the many means should I adopt? I know nothing of these. O Lord, please save me and describe in all detail how to end this misery of this life in the finite.
So, these are the kinds of questions we want to ask. So the first one was how to cross this ocean of existence. Say it again.
how to cross this ocean of relative existence.
Yes. How do I cross over it? Sansara. How do I cross over? And the second idea
What is to be my ultimate destination?
is my ultimate destination to come back with a better lifetime? Is my ultimate destination to live in Brahmaloka or go to heaven? Is my ultimate destination to be a kitty cat in somebody's home where I never have to do anything except eat cat food and lie in the sun? What is my ultimate destination? What is the goal of the spiritual life? Next idea.
Which of the many means should I adopt?
How do I get there? Will reading Louise Hay get me there? If I do ritual, will it get me there? Is there a special mantra that'll get me there? Vibhuti, sacred ash that may come out of a statue, will that get me there? Pilgrimages, will that get me there? What yoga practices should I do? Should I do pranayama? Should I take on Tibetan Mahamudra practice? Which of the many means should I take up? What's the last idea in this verse?
Please save me and describe in all detail how to end the misery of this life in the final.
So, here the Shishya says, I'm coming to you because I have trust. I think you know what you're talking about. Tell me what's the path? What's the goal? How do I travel it? All right, next one.
So we're entering a new section. Loving advice of the Guru.
Let's see what time it is. We can start it. We can do a couple of them.
Tatha vandatam sharanagatam swam sansara davana na lata patatam nirikshya karunya saradrishya dadhya bhitin sahasa mahatma. As he speaks, afflicted by and seeking protection from the conflagration of the fire of samsara, the noble teacher looks at him in all pity and kindness and spontaneously bestows upon him protection from fear.
So the word pity, we need to understand that it has no meaning of being condescending. Pity, the dictionary definition is genuine sorrow at the misfortune of others. That's all that it means. So here the Guru, understanding the plight of the Shishya, the disciple, looks at him with great love and compassion and complete understanding of their situation. Let's do one more.
Vidvan satasma upasattimiyeshu mumukshave sadhuyato sakarine prashanta chittaya shaman vitaya tattvopadesham kripayeva kuryat. To him who in his anxiety for liberation has sought the protection of the teacher, who abides by scriptural injunctions, who has a serene mind, and who is endowed with tranquility, The master should pour out his knowledge with utmost kindness.
So this is an instruction to the guru. If you have a fit student, you don't hold back. I'm too busy. I have a bridge game tonight. No. So when the student is ready and earnestly seeks to know, it is the responsibility of the teacher to show up, suit up, be present, do his job or her job. All right, I think this is a good place to stop. What number are we on now?
We are on 43.
43, we will do 44 next week.
Sorry, we're going to start 43 next.
We'll start 43?
Yes.
40, we finished 42, we'll start 43. All right, we have time now for questions. It can be about any of the stuff we've covered or anything else.
Can I ask about a choice of term, Jim?
Speak a little louder, I didn't catch the question.
Can I ask you about a choice of term that you employ?
Certainly.
You keep saying that don't go by the vulgarities of the teacher. I was curious, A, what you meant vulgarities to include and why that term is the term of choice. Because it's a strong word is all.
Well, vulgare is the Latin from which it comes, which means commonplace of the people. For example, when the Christians' New Testament was translated from Greek, its original language, into Latin so everybody could read it, it was called the Latin Vulgate. So what I mean by vulgarities here, the vulgar things, is some people may have had a deep samadhi, but their behavior in the world is still to a large degree extroverted. And that behavior can confuse the student. So that if there are still some acquisitive tendencies in the teacher, and they're trying to make a buck or set up a business, they want to be famous or something like that, those are vulgarities. And they will taint the work. Or if the teacher has no discipline around sexuality, that is a vulgarity that can cause a lot of trouble. I do not ever tell any teacher what they should do, but I'll tell you what I tell students: don't have sex with your teacher. It gets in the way. Either find a romantic love interest who may or may not be enlightened, or find a teacher. But where people get into all sorts of trouble is when a teacher will have sex with one student, then they have sex with another one, and the first one's all angry and brokenhearted and stuff like that. Those problems are vulgarities. The other big one, if the teacher is caught up in what we call second mind, or enlightenment sickness, meaning ego may have reformed with the idea, I know something special. Then what they will tend to do is make the interaction about themselves. They're always telling stories about themselves, about their spiritual experience, stuff like that. And that leaves the student with having this attention on the teacher. Oh, I want that. Gee, I want to have that experience. Where if that vulgarity has been burnt out, the teacher's far more likely to be able to turn the student's mind back on their own self. I have told this story many times. I think it was down in San Diego. I don't even remember the scripture that Swamiji was doing. But there were about 200 of us in the satsang hall. And he had masterfully turned all our minds so we were lost in the vision of the self. And he just went, got up and walked out. And he had disappeared. Nobody even noticed him. Everybody was lost in samadhi. That's the Sadguru. For all sorts of other vulgarities. I'm not talking about whether or not the teacher uses four-letter words or not. That's not the kind of vulgarity about which I'm speaking. It's the impurities. And again, there are stories of teachers who've been rascals. And if you get involved with them, that's your prarabdha, that's your karma. But by and large, the teaching works the best if the teacher, to some degree, has worked through a lot of that stuff. Does that make it a little clearer?
Yeah, for sure. I think what I'm gathering is if the teacher puts the focus on anything outside of the teachings, especially on themselves, then that's what we need to be looking out for.
Well, and again, a lot of that can be the student. A lot of people had all sorts of weird ideas about Swamiji. You know, he looked like a king. He wore beautiful silk. He had a Rolex watch. That upset a lot of people. He should be a simple Swami, you know. So, you know, we project a lot of our ideas as well. But I think his basic instruction to us, which is by and large, you know, your guru should be your friend. Doesn't mean you can't go to dinner with a teacher. But try not to get all caught up in personality stuff. Is that a little clearer?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent question.
Jim, can you hear me?
Pardon me?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I have one other question. Hopefully it's a short one. Earlier today, while going over one, I think, of the Sankaras, you said that you have your photo of your guru, Swamiji, behind you because you would not be able to talk about that particular thing if you were looking at him directly into his face. Can you please elaborate on that? What did you mean?
All right. I shamelessly copied what he said because he would have Swami Tapovanam's picture behind it. And when he would unfold this verse, at the end of it, he'd go, look up like that. Because what he wanted us to know is that these are ideals. And none of us lives completely up to the ideal. So I too see that as an ideal. And this one is at best a poor reflection of my guru. Is that a little more useful?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? That reminds me of another story. So there was a Westerner who traveled all over the world looking for the perfect master. And this is back in the 70s. And when Baba Muktananda was here at the Siddha Yoga ashram down on San Pablo. And he came to see Baba and he pranamed and asked Baba, I've traveled all over the world looking for the perfect master. Are you he? And Baba's answer was a delight. He said, funny you should say that. I've been looking for the perfect student. Are you he? And the fellow was quite dejected and turned and walked away because at least he was honest enough to know of his own shortcomings and failings. So Baba called him back and said, maybe we can work something out. So to contrast these ideas of the fit student and the perfect teacher, let us not get caught up in perfectionism. Now, what I do say is be ruthless. Do not have false loyalties. Stay with a particular teacher until you feel you've gotten all that you can. And if you find another teacher who works better for you, thank you, Guruji, and go. Some teachers will say, if you study with me, you can't study with anyone else. In our tradition, we never take that position. Go where you're fed, always. The halls of Vedanta are wide open. Anyone is welcome, and anyone can leave. Any other questions? All right, let's meditate.